right, folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. Man, this weather, for those of you that are in the Ozarks, you know what I'm talking about. It has been raining for like 3 days pretty much. We've had little periods of just torrential downpour, but for the most part, it's just been drizzly, misty, wet, cold, windy rain. And I think maybe today is the last day of it, but who knows? It's the Ozarks, and well, if you don't like the weather, stick around. It'll change in a few minutes, so that's what we have to deal with. I wanted to get back on here and talk about a couple of things that are kind of in the news that you probably should at least be aware of. They're not related at all, but they're certainly things that could have greater effect on us. So it's just kind of a warning, or to kind of give you a heads up. Number one is this whole market possibility of crashing and the inverted bond yield. And then number two, there is a geomagnetic storm headed our way because yesterday the sun burped out a really big solar flare. So we want to talk about that here today in the video. Before I get started, if you're not subscribed, it's not a painful thing to be a subscriber to this channel. And some of you think you're subscribed, but maybe you're not, because YouTube has this weird way of just randomly unsubscribing people. So if you think you're subscribed, you probably should check. And if you're not subscribed, just go ahead and click that subscribe button. It's really not, it doesn't cost anything, and it won't hurt, I promise you. So first thing is this whole market stuff. Now, I'm not a market guy. When I was younger, I dabbled in it. So I'm not an expert. You're not going to get any market advice out of me. I don't have the scope and the knowledge and the understanding as other people do. If you're wanting to watch a channel that a guy that does, and it's entertaining, there's a YouTube channel called J Bravo. A guy goes by Johnny Bravo, but his YouTube channel is J Bravo, and he offers some pretty good insight, and he's funny. But what we do know is that yesterday it was released that the 30-year that the bond market is inverted. Okay, so what that means is that the 30-year bond is now yielding less than the 20-year bond. So usually, for those of you that don't know, most of you do, if you're investing and you're investing in bonds, the longer that you invest, the longer the bond is, usually the better the yield outcome. You have to keep your money locked up that long, but hey, in the end, it's going to pay off, right? Well, not so much more. There's a lot of things that they're, kind of warning about with this. One of the things is, it just immediately stands out, is that the faith in this nation being around and being able to pay back on a bond in 30 years is probably slipping. That's the first thing that pops into my mind when you see that the longer bonds are now kind of tanking. The other thing is that it is usually a good sign, and there's articles, you can find all the kind of information about it that explains it way better than my hillbilly brain can, that when the 30-year bond, or when the bond market inverts like this, it's usually a good sign that a recession is on the way, and that a market crash, or at least a market correction, is on the way. And this is something that's been talked about for the last few months. Here's an article here. Many analysts and economists have been saying that they're predicting that in the next 6 to 12 months that the market could go through somewhere between a 40 and a 60% correction. Now, I'm on here all the time saying, or not all the time, but at least a lot, that the stock market is not a good judge of the economy. And that's true. Okay, the bond market's a much better judge of the economy than the stock market. The stock market is not. The stock market, the vast majority of the stock market, you think of yourself and other people trading and grandmas and their investments and all that, but the vast majority of the stock market is the 1%, or at least the upper 5% of the population playing with their money. That's really the vast majority of it. So it's not necessarily a good judge of the economy. But on the surface, the American people, and really people around the world, business people especially, they look at the stock market as, possibly where a lot of the faith is in the American economy. And really, that's all it is. Our dollar has no real intrinsic value. The only value in our dollar is the faith that's in it in the market. The same way with the American economy. As the economy is slipping and it's starting to go down, that faith in the American economy is, well, it's losing that faith. And if the stock market made a major crash or major correction, while it's not necessarily the end for the economy, it does show the American people and the rest of the world that, hey, there's something bigger going on here, and a lot more people are going to take notice. It's also about the only thing left in the economy that's actually shown to do good over the past year or so. Every other area of the economy looks awful. Housing market, the recent numbers in the housing market's down, GDP down, inflation up. Everything looks bad except the stock market continually goes up, up, up. And if that doesn't happen, then what else are they going to say? What are the trolls that get on here and say, yeah, but the stock market's doing great? Well, it looks like that there's a strong possibility that we're going to at least see a correction in the stock market in the coming weeks or months. And it could happen much sooner than just weeks away. But at the very least, I think we're going to see a correction, and it's very possible a crash. This, like I said, this has been predicted, and everything in the economy is grinding to a halt. It's looking pretty bad. Will it cause us to go into complete financial collapse? I talked about it the other day. The word hyperinflation has been floating around more, especially since Twitter guru Jack Dorsey talked about it in this warning. Will it get to that point? I don't know enough to tell you whether it is or isn't. But is it going to continue to worsen? I think definitely so. I don't think that we're anywhere out of the woods when it comes to the economy. In fact, my personal opinion is that we're only just getting started on this downward spiral. So, just giving you a heads up, inverted bond market, not a good thing. And it's already, while the stock market hasn't done any kind of big crashes or major losses since then, a lot of stocks aren't faring so well since that announcement came out. So definitely keep that on your radar, at least a little bit. Uh-oh, I think we're going to get some rain now. Second thing, so the solar flare. I mentioned it, I believe, yesterday. I've seen some people talk about how it could be as big as the Carrington event. I don't believe so, but again, this is not an area that I'm an expert in, so I'm just going off of what different people say, and I've listened to both the people from the one extreme to the next of that it's not going to be a big deal, we'll never notice it hit us, to it could cause a very near grid failure. There's just some things to kind of factor in. Number one, this was with solar flares, they're rated. There's different ratings, and the top rating, meaning the worst, is an X flare, and that's what this was. This was an X flare. It just barely made it an X flare, like it just scratched the surface of making it to an X flare, but that's still pretty good size, a big X flare. The thing that I noticed from what I was reading is that this one lasted substantially longer than most solar flares. So it's the intensity may not been as high as some potential flares, but it lasted, so it's spewing a whole lot more out. And they're saying that it should hit us October 31st into November 1st, the actual geomagnetic storm portion of it, which is what will do most of the real damage. They're saying that this has a direct shot of the Americas, probably the southern part of North America and the northern part of South America is where this is mostly going to hit. Does that mean that we're looking at a grid down and that we should prepare for that? I don't think so. What I think could happen, we could see some telecommunications problems, satellite, cell phones, TV, things like that. That could happen. It could be worse, and the reason why it could be worse is because the scientific belief is that our magnetic field around the Earth, what protects the Earth, has gotten much weaker. And if the right flare, the right CME hits us, because our protective field is weaker, that it could do a lot more damage. Again, I'm not an expert in this. I know some of you don't believe in all this stuff. Some of you do. It's that's your own personal thing. I'm just telling you what's being reported to let you know what's going on. I think what we will see is we're probably going to see an uptick for a little while in earthquake and volcanic activity. The science is still kind of iffy on that, but I do believe that it does. There's too much evidence that I have read to show that solar flares, geomagnetic storms do affect that kind of stuff. So we've already had, as told the other day, we've had a bumper crop year for volcanoes, and we've got several that are going off. That La Palma it's getting worse, like it's getting bigger, even though it's been going on for a month or so. And then now this happening, could it make it even bigger? Could it make it worse? And I know there's a lot of worries of it seen as tsunami and everything. I'm not even going there. I'm just saying. We've got a very major solar flare. Apparently NASA, that really trustworthy organization, they're putting out warnings that this is a significant geomagnetic event that will be happening in the Americas, the Western Hemisphere, coming October 31st into probably, from what I'm gathering, maybe the afternoon of October 31st, could be the morning, afternoon, and it could last into the next day. Be ready. I always tell people when stuff like this is when we hear that this could be happening, do we just go about our business as normal and say, well, if it happens, it happens, oh well? I tell you, this is what I would do. If you can stay home or stay near home, if at all possible, do that. If you got kids, teenagers, work, whatever it is, if you can do your best to try to stay close to home or stay home, and that way that, you're not really altering your life that much. But if it does happen, at least you're close to home. It doesn't hurt to at least go over your preparedness plan for those of you that have them in relation to EMPs and CMEs and grid down. Because, at some point, there's a likely chance that at some point it's going to happen. And it doesn't hurt to get prepared for that. It doesn't hurt to review that and go over it. And that way, if this is the big one, you're ready for it. But I just wanted to get those two things out. No, they're not related. Economies just continually looking worse. Potential stock market crash. Inverted bond market. Not good thing. At least a recession is probably on the way. And that's already been talked about. I mean, that's not any new news. These experts and the Fed and everyone's already saying recession. It's probably going to be a lot more like the Depression. But anyways, we will find out. All right, folks, I just wanted to get that out there to you so that you have awareness of what's going on, so that you can have a joyous and wonderful weekend waiting for the stock market to crash and the grid to collapse. No, it's not that. I hope it's not that bad. Could be. Hopefully not. All right, folks, thank you for watching. Catch you in the next video.